What's up, bitches?
Let's talk about crime.
What's up, bitches?
Hello. Got a little bit of a cold today. A little frog in my throat.
Yeah. So Sierra is actually sick.
But she does sound like this right now.
She kind of does, but it's a lot raspier of a voice. And so she called me this morning and she was like, "Hi, Mom. I think the podcast is going to be great today." And I was like, no, stay your sick ass at home, first of all. Second of all, nobody wants to hear that crackety ass voice. So,
And I figured I'd volunteer my frog voice over that.
So if you are not familiar with the Fatal Blend podcast that I do, also, this is Jay. This is my husband. He is going to fill in as a guest host instead of Sierra.
If you guys really like this episode, then you can follow us on Fatal Blends. And you'll get more of what you're going to see here. And it's not Fatal Blends. It's a Fatal Blend.
Yes.
No S.
Yes.
I have a lisp.
No, you don't.
I say all my D's with an S.
So anyways, that's who's here. Because it was either that or I do it by myself, which I totally could have. But, you know, having...
Boring.
Could be a little boring. And just a side note, Jay and I only focus on serial killers over at Fatal Blend. So this is going to be a nice break or a different episode, interesting enough for him because it's not a serial killer.
Which will be really, really weird.
So this is going to be very different from what he's used to. So it should be fun because he doesn't know how we do things on this show.
But I'm excited because I want a little bit of a break from the serial killers, you know.
Like one thing, we don't do shots.
That's okay.
And by shots, I don't mean like drinking shots. I mean, like because it's Fatal Blend, we talk about coffee on Fatal Blend. And so we talk about like shots of espresso. But regardless, here's what we do. We're just going to get right into it.
Hell yeah, brother.
Okay, so what are we talking about today? Well, today we are talking about something that happened on December 26th, 1993. A man named Russel Douglas is found dead in his car.
Boom, boom, boom.
Now, this does happen on Whidbey Island in Washington.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
We've been there.
We have been there. And
Scurry.
Whidbey Island.
And I think we were there in 93.
Listen, I be visiting Whidbey Island plenty of times.
Yeah.
No doubt. I don't live there. We visited there because we live in Washington and the Seattle area is near Whidbey Island. And so that's just one of those places we like to visit, but you do have to take a ferry to get there. And that's kind of fun sometimes. There have been 3 people who have long been suspected. That would be Jim Huden or Huden. We're going with Huden, Peggy Sue Thomas, and Brenna Douglas. That's what we're talking about.
I'm leaning towards Peggy Sue just because of the name.
Peggy Sue. You know what that made me think of when I was researching? All I could think of was the Richard Simmons dance. The Richard Simmons. My mom used to do the tapes. She used to have Richard Simmons dance tapes. And my mom used to do one. And there was a song that was Peggy Sue, Peggy Sue. And there was a whole dance to it. Anyways, my sister and I knew that dance like crazy. So let's get into a little background. Now, this will be a completely weird episode than what we're normally used to anyways, because there's not really a ton of background on any of the 4 people total that were involved. Because again, 3 suspects, 1 person. But I will tell you what I can. And a lot of the stuff is like in their adult. So I don't know. I know not much. And again, just bear with me. Just listen to the story.
I'm all ears.
So Russel Douglas, we're going to start with Russel Douglas. Russel Douglas is the victim. He was actually, at the time of his murder, he was pursuing a master's degree in business administration from the University of Phoenix. He also was working in land acquisition for Wayland and Company. Now, Russel Douglas is married to Brenna Douglas, who is one of the suspects.
Oh, it's the wife.
And they were married. They had 2 children. And then in late 1993, the couple became estranged. there were there were allegations of abuse and allegations of affairs. And these were actually Brenna's allegations against Russell. She was saying that he was having affairs and that he was abusive. Now, Brenna had actually filed for an order of protection against her husband. And her allegations were that he would threaten her and call her names. He had threatened to hold her head under hot water until she stopped moving. As like that's like an example of a threat that he had made. He also she also claims that he neglected their 2 children. And then there was some talk about physically hurting her, like punching her in the face, but that was a threat of punching her. Like he would threaten to physically harm her in that way. And that she had said that he had actually called her and threatened to take her kids away from her by like making claims against her or whatever. So she goes down to the courthouse and asks for a protection order.
Sounds like a real champ.
Right. But just wait.
Oh, I know.
According to Brenna, she also slept with a knife under her pillow because she was that scared. Okay.
Oh, come on. Who doesn't?
Well, I don't, but you know. Now, Brenna also owned a salon. Okay. And one of her employees was named Peggy Sue Thomas. The second suspect we're talking about. Now, Peggy Sue Thomas has a pretty rough background. In 1963, her father's wife was murdered by one of the teenage neighbors, which is fucking rough. Like that's shitty. She also dealt with multiple other deaths throughout her life with family members. So like she's seen quite a bit of death. Peggy was also an aircraft mechanic in the late 1990s for like military. And she also served in Desert Storm. She worked in an auto repair shop. She was also married and divorced 3 times. She has 2 daughters. And fun fact, she was crowned Miss Washington in 2000 at the age of 35.
She sounds like the person who did it.
Now, she also became basically a millionaire because she married an oil tycoon and they got divorced and she got like $1 million. Okay, so she's got some life. Now, Peggy, she had actually known a man named Jim Huden. The third suspect.
The third one.
Now, she knew him out like...
They're all in on it, but I think Peggy Sue ran it.
Okay. She knew him throughout her life. Like they actually grew up and lived on Whidbey Island together. They went to school together. They knew each other. They lost connection. Now, they lost connection with each other until 2002. So basically from whenever because I think he moved away, although she moved away too. But they lost connection at some point in their life. They reconnected in 2002. And they reconnected because Peggy had actually gone back to Whidbey Island along with Jim for a funeral of somebody that they, mutually knew. And then at that funeral is where they were like, Jim,
let's plan a murder.
Peggy. No.
Oh.
Jim, Peggy, hey, what's up? Like the usual chit chat, wada, right? Now, Jim was a software developer. He made a fuck ton of money by selling his software to Microsoft. Like, I think he even made like millions because he sold some sort of software to Microsoft, which gives me high fucking hopes for my son.
At least he better.
Because he be in school for some software programming /coding /web development. Anyways. Shout out to you, kid. He actually ended up moving to Florida and he lived there with his wife. He had a wife.
That sounds just like our son.
Right. Because, you're right. I didn't even.
Yeah, he likes Florida.
He likes Florida. I was thinking about the wife thing. I was like, I don't know if he'll ever get married.
No,
but
the Florida
thing. A software engineer who lives in Florida wait, let me ask. Do you think he'd play in a jazz band?
Yeah.
Called Buck Naked and the Exhibitionists?
Ooh. Good possibility there. Hey, if you're listening to this, watch your back.
So anyway, so that's what he does. He lives in Florida. He's married. He is playing in this band because again, he made a ton of money on this software. So he basically, I'm assuming like works on software stuff, but whatever. Now his early childhood was literally full of abuse at the hands of his stepfather. And after reconnecting with Peggy, he actually begins to kind of meet up with her in Vegas because that's where she lives.
Sneaky link.
So he would tell her that he's going on business trips. He obviously was hooking up with her, and that's what he was going for. Now, Peggy supposedly had no idea he was married at the time. I could believe that because they had met back up like after years of not seeing each other at a funeral. Maybe his wife didn't come up in the conversation. I could see that. Whatever. What? I'm fucking playing. If you're married, you fucking tell the people you haven't seen in 100 years that you're fucking married.
I'm married.
So this brings us to December 26th, 1993. Russell leaves home and never comes back. Now, his vehicle is found with the driver's side door open, and it is parked at the end of like a secluded dead-end road / like driveway thing. And Russell is inside the vehicle, and he is shot between the eyes with a .380 caliber weapon.
Damn.
I don't even know what that is, but I just...
380's got some kick to it.
Okay, well, that's what he was shot with.
And between the eyes, it's a good shot.
So...
like a military person.
So, like, you know, obviously they look at this and they go, I don't think he killed himself. Now, here's a couple of reasons. One, the location of his injury.
Yeah, most people don't put it between their eyes.
Right. Two, there was no gun on him, near him, or anywhere at the scene.
He could have flung it.
And three, the position of his hands and his body proved that suicide was actually not a possibility.
Can't argue with that one.
Okay, so they know right then and there, okay, he has been murdered. So the cops, after they find his body and start to assess things, they find out who he is. They show up to Russell's home at about 10 p.m. on December 26th. His wife opens the door and they tell him, ma'am, we are very sorry to inform you that we just found your husband. He has been murdered. Well, they didn't say that probably.
And she was like, oh no.
Well, the police officer said they were actually shocked by her reaction because she was very impassive, almost like, okay. Like
cool.
I
said, she was like, oh no.
She then very quickly says, well, you understand that he has had multiple affairs on me. He's cheated on me like our entire marriage. And also he's been extremely abusive of me, both mentally and physically. She also tells the cops that they were separated, but during the Christmas season for their kids, they were staying together in the same house. So they find this all very fucking suspicious. And they're like, I guess we should take a look at his wife.
Yeah. I'm so upset. Don't look at me for the murder.
Yeah. So they dig into her life and they discover that her business, her salon, is in extremely deep debt. And
wait, didn't you say Peggy Sue was one of the salon workers?
She works for Brenna. Yes, ma'am. Sir. Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I got confused because you were saying Peggy Sue was hooking up with Jimbo.
Yeah, and then we went into the murder. Sorry.
Right. I was thinking Jimbo was the guy who got murdered.
No, Russell.
Yeah, I didn't know Jimbo was married either because you didn't say that.
I literally said he was in Florida married.
Oh, that's right.
Pay attention, bro.
Back it up.
So they decide to dig into her life and they discover that her business is in deep debt, like seriously deep debt, which they also found that there were actually 2 life insurance policies taken out on Russell that equaled enough money to clear all of her debt.
That's why I don't let you see my life insurance.
Suspicious. Now, unfortunately, they dig and dig and dig, and they actually can't come up with anything that directly links her to the murder of her husband, so therefore they don't charge her with anything. However, through their digging, they do find that they find that there were multiple phone calls that had been made between Russell, the one who passed away, and a phone number. They look in this phone number and they're like, that's somebody named Peggy Sue, and why is he calling her so many times?
They were blinking.
Okay, that was my first thought. No, it's not it, but that was my first thought too. So then they're like, oh, okay. And then they realize that the last phone call that they had was literally just a couple hours before his murder. They go to Peggy Sue, and also never mind the fact that they linked the fact that Peggy Sue also works for Brenna in her salon. So this is a connection that they probably want to look into.
I want to hit the Peggy Sue with like an Elvis. Oh, Peggy Sue.
That's what I'm saying, right? That's what I'm saying. So upon the questioning of Peggy, they find out that she did in fact call him. And she tells them like, yeah, no, I was talking and we were playing phone tag because I had a present that I wanted to give to Brenna for Christmas. And I wanted him to meet up with me and get it because Brenna and I had made a pact that we were not going to buy each other Christmas presents this year. But I found something that I really wanted to get her, and I wanted to give it to her after Christmas so she couldn't get mad at me.
Yeah, it's called insurance money.
She said, I called him because I said, can you meet me? I'm going to give you this present to bring to Brenna. Now, she insists that she has nothing to do with his murder and she actually is released. And again, there is no physical evidence that points in the direction of her either. Now, they do continue to search. And one of the biggest things was that no one they talked to could say anything bad about Russell except for his estranged wife, Brenna. Like they talked to anybody and everybody who knew Russell and they were all like, no, he was like super nice. So I'm not going to say that he was or was not abusive. Now, Jay, since you're a guest host, we did a different episode where a woman murdered her husband. She had claims of abuse. And one of the things that we don't do is we're not going to say whether or not she was actually abused because I don't know. And there was no real proof, there was no proof of abuse, but there's also no proof that there was no abuse. And so we just kind of chalk it up as I'm giving you the information I found, which was that everybody else who knew Russell said, nope, I couldn't see him being abusive. He was very nice. He was this, that, the other. So keep that in your mind as we continue to go through the story.
Locked away.
So this case actually goes cold for several months because they just can't, nothing is clicking. They can't find anything. They have no weapon. They have no physical evidence that shows that either of these women that they suspect have been anywhere near or around him other than the one night with the present. But even that is not really enough to solidly give some sort of a which I don't know why. To be honest with you, the more when I was researching this, I was like, I feel like I have definitely seen them convict people on less shit. Like I've just whatever. That is until a person comes forward and says they are a friend of Jim's and that Jim had told him that he had actually killed Russell. Okay, so somebody comes forward to the cops and basically says, hey, I want to let you know I'm friends with Jim. Jim's friends with Peggy. Peggy's friends with Brenna. And Jim actually told me one drunken night we were hanging out and he had told me that he grew up with an abusive stepfather and that he decided he wanted to get revenge by killing another abuser. And so he actually went and shot Russell for being an abuser to Brenna, who is Peggy's boss. So he tells him this. So he goes to the cops and says, so I just want to let you know, this is what Jim is telling people. So he also supposedly tells his friend that his girlfriend Peggy and Russell's wife Brenna were involved and the three of them had planned to basically murder Russell. However, he does clarify later on when he's talked to again that Brenna Douglas, the wife, knew that the murder was going to happen, but she was not involved in the planning. She was not involved in getting the weapon. She was not involved in any of that. What she knew was that her husband was going to be murdered that day when he left the house. Still guilty by association, in my opinion. I'm just saying, but.
And Peggy Sue was the ringleader.
Can you just listen? Okay, so I totally fucked up. And I don't know what the hell my brain was thinking. I have to clarify something. This did not happen December 26, 1993, as I originally said. And I'm not going back and re-recording the whole damn episode. It happened in 2003. So I don't know why the hell my note said 1993. So this happened in 2003. Okay.
10 years later.
Yeah. Please. Yes. So when I say that him and his wife became estranged, I said 1993. It's 2003. And also in 2002 is when Jim and Peggy reconnected at the funeral, not 1992. I thought I had fucked up on the dates and I changed them and I was totally wrong. So.
Well, that's your lisp. You just add 10 years.
So
or take away 10 years.
So apologies. I apologize. This is really fucked. Okay, so just to recap.
Just blame it on Sierra not being here.
Yeah, this totally threw me for a loop. Okay, so to recap. Russell Douglas was murdered on December 26th, 2003. His wife and him had just recently become estranged a little earlier in that year. And in 2002, Jim and Peggy Sue reconnected at a funeral. And that should get us caught up to date on the dates.
Welcome back, everybody.
Seriously, apologies. Anywho.
Little trip through the time machine.
So in August of 2004, so now we're looking at almost a year after all of this has happened, Jim and Peggy are actually both interrogated because, again, this friend comes forward. There are some contradicting statements in what they're saying. Like, for instance, Jim tells them, and I actually watched, by the way, the interrogation clips of the interrogation. Jim is saying, no, like, I met up with Russell. The last time I saw Russell, I met up with him to give him the present from Peggy for Brenna. Like, I met up with him. And they asked him, they're like, well, why would you meet up with him? And he's like, well, because I was trying to do Peggy a favor. She was back in the hotel and she was really tired because she had been on her feet all day at work. And I was just trying to be helpful. And so I volunteered to bring it. Okay, so that's what he says. However, Peggy in her interrogation says, well, Jim said that he was going to bring it because I was really tired. And then he left. And then like 10 minutes later, he came back and he still had the present in his hand. And he was like, for some reason, didn't bring it. So I went ahead and took it over there. Okay. So they have weird fucking
get your shit straight, people.
Right. They have contradicting statements. And again, they're interviewed in separate areas. So at this time also, by the way, Jim was still married and he is basically living a double life between these two women. Right. So he had Peggy whenever he was around her, and then he would go home to his wife. Well, Jean, which is his wife, she actually admits that he told her everything, that he had come home after this whole thing and basically said, like, I murdered a man named Russell Douglas. And he told her that Peggy and Brenna were both involved and that he was doing it because he wanted to seek revenge on somebody who was abusive, and Brenna's husband was abusive, and Peggy, yada yada, right? So she keeps this shit to herself. She doesn't tell nobody. And her reason,
she a real one.
Yeah, I mean, really. Her reason at the time,
she want that money.
No, her reason at the time was honestly because she was like, I felt like if I kept it a secret, it would like keep us together. Like she loved him, right? So she was doing, you do some shit for love. So the cops end up also, during this whole time that they're talking to the whole time they're talking to Jim, they also fucking tell Jim that they have an informant who said like, oh, hey, and they fucking tell him, oh, by the way, the guy who's talking to us is one of your bandmates and your best friends. Why the fuck you tell him?
Murdered.
Why the fuck you tell him? Right. Like, what? If he really is a murderer, you just signed that man's death sentence, you stupid cops. Like, why the fuck would you tell him that?
But at the same time, snitches get stitches, motherfucker.
Listen, I be turning in my friends if they be killing people for no reason.
You ain't a real
just
one.
Whatever.
Y'all can count on me, homies. Hit me up.
No. So it is so weird to me because they had no physical evidence against Jim, Peggy, or Brenna. So therefore, they didn't file any charges. They had no physical evidence. How the fuck do you have witness? I know it's hearsay. I fucking get it. But how do you have people coming forward out of the blue saying, hey, by the way, my friend told me he killed him? How do you have that? How do you have, come on, circumstantial evidence at best, folks? Do we just not know how to do police work? Like, come the fuck on. So whatever, they don't charge him. An investigator in New Mexico actually ends up contacting the Whidbey Island detectives, which, let me point out, Whidbey Island's actually fairly small. So maybe that's part of it, especially in the early 2000s. It's not like it's a big ass community. So maybe their officers are just not equipped to deal with this kind of shit. Because I just do feel like there was a lot of fucking evidence you could have at least started and obtained like more warrants and dug deeper to find some shit.
Man, things were different back in the 90s.
It's the fuck off. It's the 2000s, folks. There's an investigator that contacts the Whidbey Island detectives from New Mexico, and his claim is that he, in his hand, has a gun that was given to him by a man who claimed to be a friend of Jim's, and that the gun was used in a murder. Now, obviously, they have this gun sent off to the lab, and they find out within hours of it getting to the lab that this was the same gun used to kill Russell Douglas. So now they have evidence.
They've got the smoking gun.
But again, I just have to say, how is that evidence? Because somebody came in and turned it in and said it was... That's still fucking hearsay. Unless you have proof that was his gun, how the fuck is that enough to arrest people?
Might have been under his name. Who knows?
Give me a goddamn break. Anyways, so their next stop is actually to go to Vegas to interview Peggy because The gun was actually supposedly given to this man at Peggy's house while they were in Las Vegas. So I don't know why they go to her first, because like he literally says it's Jim's gun. They're like, let's go talk to Peggy. What the fuck? Because
It was her house.
here's why. They talked to Peggy. She first of all, they're like, did you know that Jim owns a gun? No, I did not. Did you know that this is Jim's gun? No, I did not. Did you know that this gun matches Russell's weapon used in Russell? No, I did not. And they were like, so you had no knowledge of this? And she's like, I had no knowledge. They're like, okay, cool. See you later. She literally goes and fucking calls Jim. This is why you don't go to her first. This is exactly why. She fucking calls Jim. Now, her claim is I called him because I was so mad at him. And it shocked me that he was the one who killed Russell. So she supposedly calls him and basically says, how dare you? How dare you do this? Blah, 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 which we all know is fucking bullshit. Then she said that after she was done like yelling at him and being mad at him, his only thing he says to her is, I'm so sorry for getting you involved in this and you're never going to see me again. So then Jim goes to his wife and he's like, he's like freaking out now. He doesn't know what to do.
The ringleader just called me.
He doesn't know what to do. He's literally like, oh my God, like, I don't know what to do. Like, they know it's me, you know, blah, blah, blah. And so his wife, being the wife that she is, says, fucking run. Go, run, hide, leave. So that's what he does. In August of 2004, he was very lucky because there was a big fat ass hurricane that came through. And as soon as that shit went all crazy, he just decided to flee to Veracruz, Mexico, and lived under the name Jim Martin. He became a musician there. A very fucking popular musician, apparently, like did tons of shows, successful. Okay. And he had a lot of people who really liked him, and they would like, he's so nice. And he had friends, like he literally lived there. Now his wife, Jean, she does admit, not only did she tell him to run, she aided him in getting him out of the country, and she supported him for many, many fucking years while he was in Mexico. And she went to Mexico a bunch of times to visit him too. Now, eventually, Jean does end up actually coming forward and telling the cops about Jim and where he is, because she's such a stand-up citizen. Or maybe it's because she was facing jail time for multiple felonies that she had committed. So this was her way of helping them find, she's helping herself. Which, to be fair, this motherfucker cheated on her for like so long. So to be honest with you, good on you, fucking Gene. I would have never helped his ass out the country, but good on you for eventually coming around, because he didn't deserve none of that from you. None of that.
Nope.
So they figure out, she's like, yeah, okay. So he's in Veracruz, Mexico. He lives under the alias Jim Martin. You will literally find him at the blah, blah, blah places, because this is what he does. He does shows. You'll find him. She doesn't tell them. I don't think she told them that she helped him out of the country until much later, but regardless, she tells them. So they're like, okay. So they go to Veracruz, Mexico, and sure as shit, there's Jim performing, doing his thing. And so they arrest him and they bring him back to Whidbey Island in 2011. 11.
Damn.
So he was living for 7 years in Mexico, free as a motherfucking bird.
Do you think they watched the whole show and then arrested him? If he was that good of a musician, were they like, oh yeah, and then we're like, all right, come with us?
I don't know. No, probably not.
Like,
I don't think
we caught one of Jim's shows.
I don't think it was one of those sisters. Like, I don't think it was like, let him finish his show first and then we'll arrest him. I think they were like, yeah, bitch, you're coming with us. So Peggy Sue now also gets arrested a short time after this. Now, by the way, just so you know, I'm just throwing this out here. She is a former friend. Okay. A former friend who says that she 100% believes that Peggy had something to do with the murder because of things that she had said after all this stuff happens. Like, for instance,
I planned this whole thing.
No. Like, for instance, at one point they were all hanging out and she was like, I have taken care of problems for friends before. Like, she was like bragging about it. And then she follows it up with, and you know what? The next time I will remember to throw the gun in the water. So she says shit like that. And this girl's like, yeah, you done did this shit. And you at least had something to do with it. You crazy bitch. And so they're not friends anymore. But Peggy to this day continues to say that she had literally nothing to do with the murder. But why would you make jokes like that? That's not a joke. You shouldn't be saying those things. Jim ends up having his trial first because, again, she has a trial as well because she's arrested. Now, his friend that originally turned him in, his name was Bill Hill.
Billy Bob.
Okay, so Bill Hill actually took the stand against him. But again, how fucked up are you police officers? Because the whole 7 ass years he's living in Mexico, at any point he could have tried to kill Bill for trying to get his ass in jail. Like, give me a break.
But Bill didn't abuse anybody.
But it doesn't matter.
Jim had a conscience.
Regardless of the reason, I didn't think that police officers were supposed to tell you who the fucking informants were. I just didn't think that was a thing. It's like a life.
That's why they're called CIs.
But he wasn't a CI. He willingly.
No, but that's how all informants should be.
Well,
They're
that's
confidential
what you think. They should be
informants.
confident, yeah, until the trial at least.
Yeah.
But nope, wasn't. Anyways.
And then they walk in the trial like, surprise, motherfucker.
So Bill Hill takes the stand against him. And they actually had tried to get Jim to take the stand to like speak for himself. He refused. He wouldn't say anything. Now, after 8 days, 20 witnesses, 8 days and 20 witnesses, it took the jury less than 4 hours to reach a verdict.
Jim didn't want to blow his own horn.
They found him guilty, and he was sentenced to 80 years in prison.
Boom.
Do you want to know what bothers me?
Jimbo.
Do you want to know what bothers me?
What?
We do Fatal Blend, and 90% of our fucking serial killers get 25 to 40.
Yeah.
How this man gets 40 years for one murder, I don't understand.
You said 80.
I meant 80. 80 years for one murder. And our serial killers killing like 10 people get 40.
Ran and he thought he could get away.
Fucking hell, I don't even know. But anyway, so he
should have tacked on a couple more. He would have got a lesser sentence.
Yeah, you're right. That's what I'm saying. I don't understand. So,
Billy Bob should have watched out.
So he gets 80 years in prison. Now, 6 months after he is sentenced, Peggy's trial starts 6 months after he has been tried and sentenced and all this stuff. Now, they also have witnesses to testify against her. So, for instance, Jean, which is Jim's wife, actually testifies that Peggy admitted to being involved in the murder as well. So the part of the story that I haven't told you because I forgot to write it down is that at some point, Peggy and Jean meet each other because Peggy shows up at Jean's house in Florida and says, "Hi, I'm fucking your husband." Okay?
Deuces.
And during that time, Jean looked at Jim and was like, "Hey, motherfucker, is this true?" And he's like, "I love you both.
Let's have a threesome."
He's like, "I love two women." And she's like, "Well, it's either me or her. Like, you choose." And he chose Jean. Okay, so he chose her. And then, which every time I hear that, I think of, he chose me. Nanny, nanny, boo. Okay, that's a TikTok thing. Anyways, you probably, you're looking at me like you have no idea what. Oh, never mind.
Weird.
Never mind. So he chooses Jean. And then literally like the next month, he's fucking Peggy anyway. So he lied because that's what he does. So anyway, so she is like, "Yeah, I'll come forward," because as her and Peggy had that face to face, that was some of the things that were brought up was the fact that Jean already knew that he had killed Russell. And apparently Jean told Peggy, like, "You're not going to be able to take him because we share secrets." And Peggy's like, "Yeah, bitch, so do we," like kind of a thing. And so she's like, no, she admitted to being involved in this, like 100%. The problem was Jean's story changed like multiple times over the 7 years when they were trying to like figure out where he had gone. They were trying to figure out things. Every time they interviewed her, her story changed a little bit. And so they were kind of like, you're not a very reliable witness. And she even admitted herself, like when she was talking to prosecuting attorneys and stuff, before they put her like on the stand or anything, they ask her like, "Do you have problems like with your memory?" And she's like, "Yeah, I do have some issues with my memory a little bit, like for the past," because also she was a drug addict. So
I would have looked at him and said, "I can't remember."
But I mean, so they were kind of like, okay, so because of this, prepare yourselves. Fucking just prepare yourselves. At this point, everybody knows that Peggy Sue had something to do with this. Yes?
Ringleader.
Okay. We all know in reality that Peggy Sue and Brenna had something to do with this murder, but Jim is completely, by the way, not. They actually asked him multiple times if anybody was helping him. He wouldn't speak on any of it. Okay. As a matter of fact, he was asked, he was actually given the option of a plea deal if he talked about Brenna and Peggy Sue's involvement, and he said, "Mum's the word," and he didn't say anything. Probably because he didn't think he'd get 80 damn years. He probably regrets that now.
The plea deal was probably like 60 years.
Well, he pulled the trigger 100%. So, yeah, he deserves everything. But because Jean is not a good witness, the prosecutors start to get worried and they decide, fuck, we're going to give her
a deal.
Plea deal. We're going to give her a plea deal. So they offer her 4 years in prison and she accepts it.
That's my response.
4 years. And she accepts it. So now I'm going to just say something about this, okay? If you're really innocent, why are you accepting a plea deal at all?
Yep.
And I mean, actually, that question was asked because a couple of people who were very pissed off, which fair enough, they had asked like, well, why would she even accept a plea deal if she was innocent? And her lawyer actually said, and I don't buy this for the fucking life of me, because again, they didn't have any physical evidence linking her to it. So if she was really innocent, she would have said, no, let me take that stand and let me fucking tell those people how I would never do this to somebody. This was my boss's husband. Why would I, whatever. He said, well, she took the deal because she felt that she wasn't going to get a fair trial because she was on this little island of Whidbey Island and everybody had already made up their minds about her and they had read all of the different things that had come out about the murder and they had already decided she was guilty. No. I mean, they might have. I'm not even gonna lie. They might have. But you know what
Sounds
you could have
like an
done?
excuse
What you could have done, Mr. Lawyer, you could have asked for a different venue.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things you could do. So for her to take a 4-year plea deal on something she never did and go to jail for 4 years, by the way, leaving her daughters, she was guilty.
Sounds like you're guilty to me and you took a pretty sweet deal.
And then it gets better. But I'll talk about that in a minute. Now, Brenna Douglas, okay, the wife. She actually still this day is considered a suspect. They do not arrest her. She is considered a suspect, but because there is no hard evidence against her, there's nothing they can do about it. She completely refuses to talk to anybody about it. She did also collect the insurance money from Russel's death, which she ended up having to sue for. And weirdly enough, during the lawsuit, she actually changed her claims about Russel. She painted him as this really great man who helped take care of her children.
I need that money
who
to
helped
survive.
take care of her. And
he was so great.
She said that if it wasn't for him, the salon would have never even been a thing.
Sounds like a load of caca.
Right. So this is why we don't say yes or no whether she was abused, because there's two stories that could be happening here. She could be lying and he really was an abusive piece of shit. And she could be lying so that she can get that money. Or she could have been lying about him being an abuser because she wanted to get the money.
So either way, you're spewing caca.
She is spewing caca in one way or the other. Now, I will tell you the amount of money that she received. There is 3 different numbers that I've seen. 200,000 was one of them. But the most common one that I saw was 400,000. And then one story said she got 500,000.
$1 million.
She fought for that. That's why I'm saying it really could be that she was an abuse victim. I'm going to be honest, if she was an abuse victim and her husband died, regardless of how he died, because
But if she was involved and she got the ball rolling, you literally put a price on a human being's life of $400,000.
But if he was abusive, I don't give a shit.
Hey, I'm just saying, I get it if he's abusive, but what I'm saying,
if he's an abusive garbage piece of shit and you killed him, however you killed him, whether you did it or you set it up, I don't care.
Sounds like this whole case was just full of duty. I
don't care either way. However, if you just wanted the money and you had him killed and made up all this shit to make it seem, I don't even know. I guess I don't know. As a matter of fact, what I really don't know is that did I even say that? I don't even think I said. After she put that restraining order out against her husband, she retracted it 2 weeks later, by the way.
For show.
No, I don't know if it was for show. I don't know.
Or the heat of the moment. You're
heat
mad,
of the moment.
You're upset,
Yeah.
You're
again,
having an argument. You're like, I'll show you what's up.
I mean, yes, but I just don't know. Again, this is why I'm not going to speculate on the abuse thing. But what I am going to say is I definitely think that she definitely had a hand in why her husband was murdered. Because the other thing was Bill
Oh, Billy Bob.
Bill Hill actually told the police that the reason they killed him was because she was supposed to get, now this is why I'm like, yeah, she had something to do with it. She was supposed to get $400,000 to $500,000. He said this before she went to do all the insurance shit. And he said his wife is set to get $400,000 to $500,000, and I don't remember the exact amount, but I do think he said that Jim was supposed to get $50,000, and then Peggy was supposed to get a certain amount, and then she'd keep the rest if they got rid of him.
Well,
so
I'll tell you what. In the clink, we would call Billy Bob a canary.
His name is Bill Hill.
Because he's
And
singing
you've
like a
never been
bird.
to jail, bitch. Like, be quiet. Get out of here. So that's that. Whatever. Brenna Douglas, to this day, she actually still lives in Washington, I guess. She did change her last name. And last they had seen is she works at a salon or owns a salon. I don't know. But regardless, she still lives in Washington, just not in this. She doesn't live on Whidbey Island anymore. I didn't bother to track her down because I think that's fucked up. I would never do that. And I won't even tell you what her maiden name was because she goes by her maiden name. So I'm not even going to get into
and
this
I'll
whole
tell
shit.
you what.
It's her life.
Yeah. If you were getting abused, fuck that guy.
Right.
Do I think people deserve to die? That's a little far. I think he should
He has to pay
get
in
what's
for his
coming to him.
Right.
So if you were getting abuse, good on you getting away from that shit.
Yeah.
If he wasn't, caca.
Yeah. So there's that. Now Peggy Sue Thomas. Y'all remember how she got 4 years?
Got out and won for good behavior.
No. This is worse. This is fucking way worse. So remember how she got 4 years?
Yep.
Okay. And she did serve all 4 years. She actually was released from prison in August of 2016. So she's out. She's out of jail. Part of her plea deal is that she can never be charged with the murder of Russel Douglas, even if new evidence is found.
Damn.
So if they
That's why she took that shit.
So if they come forward and they're like, wow, we have
She could
trail
literally
cams
walk
of her-
out and say,
She
I did
could
it,
have,
bitches.
Yeah, she could have literally, and she didn't, to be fair. She didn't,
Right.
but she literally could have walked out and been like, yeah, it was all me, motherfuckers, and there's not a thing they could do about it. That is a fucking plea deal.
Well, I mean, it's similar to like what double jeopardy is, right? Like you can't try
Right.
somebody for murder, have them be acquitted,
Yeah,
and then try them for murder again.
right.
You have to come up with something different. So that's basically what they did
But hers-
for the plea deal was saying,
But
I'm gonna
this is my thing.
say I did this, and you can't come after me again.
But here's my thing. Ready? And this is where I'm like, I don't fucking understand.
I'd have took the deal.
I would not have.
If
Why-
I did it, I'd have took the deal.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying is if I did it.
If I didn't do it, I'd be like, hell, let's fight this shit.
I'm definitely taking the deal. If I did not do it, as she claims, I'm looking at you like, obviously you don't have enough to even try to put me in fucking prison because you
Right.
would never give somebody this deal unless you
Nope.
have nothing. So, ma'am, you took the deal because you fucking did something. I'm not saying you shot him. You most definitely had knowledge. And I do think
If you made some connections, if you gave an address, if you said, hey, Russell, meet me down this
that's what
road.
That's what I think. I
Could
think
have been
that,
a bunch of things. I got a present for you to give your wife. Boom, boom.
I think that she called or texted him and set up the location, and I think Jim went there and killed him. But I think hey, I've got a present for your wife was her luring him there. I think that is what I don't think she killed him. I think if you want to know my honest theory on this, I think that Brenna told Peggy that they were divorced or that they were separated and getting divorced, and she said like I'm afraid of him. I think she told her these things, whether they're true or
sleep
not.
with the knife under the pillow,
I
and she
think
was just like, hey, we need to take care of this for you.
I don't think it even happened like that. I don't. I think that Brenna told Peggy all the things that there were to be told. And then I think Peggy, in like idle ass conversation, also told Jim. And I think Jim was like, fuck that guy. I was abused. I think his story is real.
Yeah.
I think he was like, I fucking hate abusers. Like, what can we do to help her? And so they had a conversation. And she talks about how she's going to get some money. She would be able to get some money and basically hired him as a hit. I think she hired him as a hit through the connection of Peggy. I don't think that I don't think Brenna was like, let me get in on this. I think Brenna was like, can you kill my husband and I'll give you some fucking money.
And I think Peggy was for
think,
lack of better words, the middleman.
Yeah, she was the middleman. So do I think she deserved 80 years in jail? No. Do I think she deserved 4? No. I think she deserved a lot more than that. But regardless, so that's her deal. Finally, Jim is still currently serving his sentence in the Washington State Penitentiary in Walla Walla. He is currently 71 years old, and he is eligible for parole in 2085.
Get a little ways to go there, bud. Hang on.
His ass is getting death in jail is what he's going to have. And I think that he deserves it. There's no fucking doubt about it. I just find it interesting that he never said anything about anybody else being involved. That's my only thing.
He's a true one.
I just can't figure out why you wouldn't. But I really.
He may have just come to terms with this. Like,
now because it's not going to help him. It doesn't help him now. And for me, I'm sitting here going, I almost wonder if it's because when he originally was doing this whole thing and they'd asked, because they said, we'll give you a plea deal if you tell us the involvement of Peggy, Sue, and Brenna. And he said nothing. And I think it's because he thought they don't really have a lot of evidence. They have a gun that is claimed to be mine that matched the bullet that killed him. That's about the only evidence they had.
Well, now let's talk about it like this. What if they, like you said, through idle conversation, shared all this, right? Mm-hmm. Not knowing Jimbo was going to do what he did. Mm-hmm. Jimbo finds out about the meetup, goes and takes care of business, or he's the one who called Russell on the phone and said, hey, I'm blah, 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 from her phone.
That could all
then he could be like, look, they had nothing to do with it. I got it through.
That could be all
through
true.
The story, but it comes back around to.
But how did Bill Hill know about the amount of money she was supposed to be getting? That to me is the thing that is a big connection. Is Bill Hill knew that she was standing to get $400,000 to $500,000.
What if Bill and Russell's wife were sleeping together?
Okay, that has nothing to do with this. What are you talking
about? Then that's how he'd know.
No.
Sounds like a Netflix movie.
No. But all I'm saying is that that's the only piece that I'm like, how did you guys not use that as fucking evidence? He literally told you this. And you didn't come forward with that evidence and say, well, when we talked to Bill, he told us this, and look, this is how much money she got. Somehow, some way, that money conversation happened in some sort of way. So regardless of what the situation scenario is, Russell Douglas is dead. I don't know if he was an abuser or not. He does have children who were little when this happened, so they're definitely still alive, and his wife has moved on. We're not going to bother that family because they very well could be the victims in this whole the children are of course the victims, if I'm being honest, but
yeah, absolutely.
So we're not going to even go into that. We're
focused here on
is Jim
and his
Peggy
80
Sue
years that he gets
for killing one person, and Peggy Sue, who literally got away with murder. In my opinion, literally got away with the sweetest deal I've ever fucking heard in my entire life. And I don't know Peggy Sue. I don't know where she is. I didn't bother to be honest with you. I was so pissed off to see her.
She could be our neighbor.
She really could. Yeah! I was so pissed off to see that she only got 4 years, and that on top of it, if new evidence were to ever come out, she couldn't get charged again. That I was like, fuck this chick. I don't even give a fuck where she is. I don't care about none of that now, because that's some crap. She's living
her life right now. That's what
she really is. And you know what? Maybe she should. Maybe she whatever. Maybe she helped her friend. I mean,
we just look at the stories that are out there and make our conclusions from that. So.
It's true. Anyway, so this was the episode without Sierra because she was sick.
And hopefully she'll be back with a much higher voice and maybe a different opinion. Won't have the dad jokes I threw in there because that comes with this big boy. But
I guess. So anyways, other than that, if you like what you hear, minus Jay because he's not our norm.
No. If you like what you hear, come visit us on Fatal Blend.
If you like the vibe of Jay and I, you just go over to Fatal Blend, and that's where we be. So we're together on a different podcast. But if you like the true crime aspect of what Crime Bitches does, that's me and Sierra. And follow us on all the things. click the follow buttons. And this is the part where I say, catch you on the flip side, bitches.
Yeah, motherfuckers.